Okay, great. Let's see. After we've gone to the Getting Started tab, we're going up to Course Materials and looking for the content, as you will typically do often. And that opens up, and we've looked at Getting Started. We've got our textbook, and we're into week 1, so let's get going on that one. Here's what there is. Typically, every week there's going to be a to-do list, and I mentioned already this chapter's got a lot of things. A lot of it is set up, and some of the early things, just getting familiar with moving around the site. So here's typically what you're going to see is a list of a lot of things to do. And of course, we've already looked through the Getting Started content, and we've already got our textbook. There's an online training on the D2L homepage, and you would read chapter 1. We also have the, I'm going to point out the pre-course assessment test. Of course, that's chapter 1 only. That's just getting an idea of what's going on. There's the MindTap interactive quiz and the media quiz. That's all we're doing each week is 2 of those and then discussions, not all this prep stuff. And then there's a video to watch and a link that goes directly to the chapter and another discussion. There'll be 2 discussions here. Again, I pointed out before that we're going to have all the learning objectives listed here, and then a quick background or something from me about what we've got. So this is also links to it all. So here's the chapter and the quiz and everything like that. So I've already gone through and found the course. I'm not sure if this is what you guys see, but when I click that, I get the MindTap in Cengage. So this is where you want to make sure that you can get to. I'm pointing this out because here's that pre-course assessment test. And I think it's really easy. And you don't have to worry about that. You can take it a few times. Just kind of getting an idea of where people are. Here is, we've looked at the foundations of business, and here's your textbook. Here are the flashcards I mentioned, and the interactive quiz, and the media quiz right here. And here's what the bricks video is all about. So this is all of chapter 1 right here. So this is what we're going to be looking at as we go through chapter 1. So here, I'm going to jump back to this is the Getting Started page. I'm going to make that big so that we can kind of look at everything that's going on. Getting Started, there's links right here to the comments for the discussions. The discussions will usually have a link on them here. I think we're good with that. On each of these pages, I'm going to go down and show you what we've done here. We're at week 1, and here's the to-do list. And then you come down here and you've got, like I say, here's all the links that goes directly to what you need to know. It's a good idea to kind of go through by order. So you read the chapter first, and then you take the interactive quiz because that relates directly to the chapter, and then some of the more in-depth, the media quiz, and then we roll into some discussions. So that's what chapter 1 looks like. I've got a PowerPoint at the bottom there. And here's the link that goes directly into week 1.1 counterpoint. And from there you can follow the tabs that goes through and start your thread and talking about that. And here's a way to go back to week 1, see where you are. So you can bounce between one and the other between going through all of those. The story about chapter 1 is really broad and general, and what they do is they reference a number of things that they will be speaking much more in depth later in the chapter. For example, we might be talking about the WTO. They'll have a quick mention of it in chapter 1 because it's very broad. And later on, in a couple of chapters later, we'll talk more detail about that, and various subjects are being presented in this very first chapter. I think there's a couple of main topics going on here. I always find it interesting that post-World War II brought on globalization. Well, actually, globalization is thousands and thousands of years old. People think that it's new, but it's actually not. It's changed. It's become modernized. And this is a fast-paced moving world we live in, so it's moving along pretty quickly. And like I say, there's been globalization. People have been trading between countries for as long as man's been on the planet. So that's nothing new. What we do have something significant that they mentioned in this chapter is that in the post-World War II era, we had to set up a lot of organizations and institutions in order to rebuild post-World War II, especially Europe. So previous to that, there were a lot of barriers on trade. Post-World War II, we had to open up barriers to allow people to trade and allow for funds to move freely back and forth. So that really accelerated things. I'll talk a little bit later about drivers of globalization, but that's the basics right there. Obviously, you have technology that is a driver of globalization. One thing that they point out in this chapter, which is very interesting to ponder, is the winners and losers created from globalization. Obviously, there are plenty of winners. When you get a new market, you enter a new market, you make a lot of money, you're a winner. But there are sometimes and often losers, and they lose pretty bad. Maybe our country is feeling some of the losers' side of globalization, where we lose some jobs, but we're gaining good, inexpensive products. There's always trade-offs that go on there. Another concept that is introduced here is the environmental questions. And this is something to think about is, do you think that people in underdeveloped countries should be allowed or should not be allowed to pollute? And why would a developed country be allowed to pollute or not pollute? Sometimes, in other words, people are thinking, well, these countries that have already been developed, they should stop polluting. It's the development of a society that is a little bit more polluting. So do we get to say to underdeveloped nations, no, you're not allowed to pollute. We get to do all the polluting. USA, I mean. So there's a lot of winners and losers and environmental things. Get to the point counterpoint. Like I said, put some thought into it. And I think this is going to be a good chapter. And good luck.